Assumed safety creates opportunity for danger because comfort changes how people think and act. When a place feels familiar, predictable, and routine, awareness drops. People stop scanning faces. They stop noticing small changes in behavior. They stop asking why someone is standing too close or why a door that's usually open is suddenly shut. Safety, or what feels like safety, slowly convinces the mind that nothing bad is supposed to happen here. Most dangerous situations don't start in dark alleys or obvious hotspots. They start in places people trust. Offices, schools, gyms, apartment buildings. Places with rules, cameras, and signs on the wall that say things like secure area or authorized personnel only. Those signs create a mental shortcut. People believe the environment itself is protection. They believe danger needs permission to enter. When people assume safety, they relax their posture. They move slower. They let their guard down. Predators notice this. They look for moments when attention is scattered and routines are predictable. They rely on the belief that nothing bad happens here. That belief gives them time. Time to position themselves. Time to isolate someone. Time to act before anyone realizes what's happening. Assumed safety also creates silence. When something feels off, people second-guess themselves. They don't want to overreact in a place that's supposed to be safe. They don't want to be the person who causes a scene. They ignore instincts because instincts don't fit the environment. The brain says, "This doesn't make sense here, so it must be nothing." That hesitation is a gap, and gaps are openings. Groups are especially vulnerable to assumed safety. When many people share the same belief that everything is fine, responsibility spreads thin. Everyone assumes someone else is watching. Someone else will intervene. Someone else will notice. That shared comfort creates a blind spot big enough for harm to move through unnoticed. Danger understands routine better than comfort does. It watches patterns. Who goes where? When supervision changes. Which doors lock automatically and which don't. It exploits the fact that people trust systems more than their own judgment. Cameras replace awareness. Rules replace readiness. Locks replace instinct. Assumed safety also weakens response. When something does happen, the delay is longer. People freeze, not because they can't act, but because their mind needs time to catch up. This isn't supposed to be happening here. That thought burns seconds, sometimes minutes. In critical moments, that delay matters more than strength or numbers. There's also a psychological comfort in believing danger is rare. It allows people to focus on daily life without fear. But that comfort comes with a cost. When danger does appear, it feels unreal. People look for confirmation instead of action. They wait for proof instead of trusting the signal. Those who cause harm depend on that disbelief. They count on the pause. They move quickly in spaces where others move casually. They act decisively while everyone else is still processing. Assumed safety doesn't just affect potential victims. It affects bystanders, security, and authority figures. When nothing ever goes wrong, preparedness feels unnecessary. Training becomes theoretical. Drills feel like formalities. Real readiness fades quietly. The irony is that true safety requires constant awareness, not constant fear. Awareness means noticing shifts. It means understanding that safe places are still human places, and humans make unpredictable choices. It means accepting that danger doesn't announce itself or follow expectations. When people stop assuming safety, they don't become paranoid. They become present. They notice exits. They notice behavior. They trust discomfort as information, not as an inconvenience. They understand that protection starts in the mind, not in the environment. Assumed safety gives danger cover. It creates shadows in bright places. It turns ordinary moments into opportunities. And the more comfortable a space feels, the less resistance danger expects to meet when it decides to move. Locks don't stop threats. Mindset does, because physical barriers only work when danger plays by the rules. A lock assumes hesitation. It assumes respect for boundaries. It assumes the person on the other side is thinking about consequences. Real threats don't pause to consider any of that. They see a lock as a delay, not a stop. People trust locks because they are visible. You can hear them click. You can see the door close. That sound gives comfort. It signals control. But control is an illusion if the mind behind the door is unprepared. A locked door with panic on the inside is weaker than an open door with awareness behind it. Mindset determines what happens when the plan fails. Locks are part of a plan. They work when everything goes right. Threats emerge when things go wrong. When someone forces entry. When someone is already inside. When the lock separates you from help instead of protecting you from harm. A prepared mindset adapts. It understands that barriers can trap as easily as they protect. It knows when to hold a position and when to move. It doesn't freeze when the expected safety measure becomes part of the problem. Panic narrows vision. Mindset widens options. Locks create a false finish line. People think once the door is secured, the danger is over. They stop thinking ahead. They stop listening. They stop planning their next move. A strong mindset stays active even after the door closes. It listens for changes. It measures time. It prepares for the moment the lock no longer holds. Threats test resolve before they test strength. They use noise, pressure, and fear to see who breaks first. A lock can't answer that test. Mindset can. Mindset controls breathing. It controls posture. It keeps hands steady when stress spikes. It prevents fear from becoming paralysis. Training shapes mindset, but mindset is more than training. It's the decision to stay functional when conditions are unfair. It's the refusal to mentally surrender just because options are limited. Someone with the right mindset doesn't wait for rescue. They become active in their own survival. Locks also assume time is on your side. That assumption is dangerous. Time favors the person with intent. A threat moves with urgency. Waiting behind a lock without a plan lets time slip away. Mindset uses time deliberately. It knows when to delay, when to distract, and when to act. In confined spaces, mindset matters even more. Locks turn rooms into boxes. In a box, movement is limited. Noise is amplified. Mistakes are costly. Mindset keeps movement efficient. It keeps actions purposeful. It avoids wasted energy and emotional reactions that reveal weakness. Many people believe strength lives in tools and structures. Doors, locks, alarms, and walls. Those things can help, but they are secondary. The primary defense is the ability to think under pressure. When fear spikes, the mind chooses whether the body follows or freezes. Mindset also shapes how threats perceive resistance. Confidence changes behavior. Calm disrupts expectations. When someone expects panic and meets control instead, momentum shifts. Locks don't project resistance. People do. When a lock fails, there is no backup unless the mind is ready. Mindset turns ordinary objects into options. It turns space into leverage. It turns seconds into opportunity. Without it, even the strongest barrier becomes a cage. Locks separate inside from outside. Mindset defines what happens on either side. It decides whether a locked space becomes protection or confinement. Whether silence is strategy or fear. Whether pressure causes collapse or clarity. The belief that locks equal safety encourages passivity. Mindset demands engagement. It accepts risk and prepares for it. It doesn't assume help is coming. It assumes responsibility is already present. Threats exploit reliance on systems. They know people trust locks more than themselves. They know many freeze once the system fails. Mindset breaks that pattern. It remains active when systems fail. Locks can slow danger. Mindset stops it. Training overrides panic because panic is a natural response, not a powerful one. Panic floods the body with urgency, but gives the mind no direction. Heart rate spikes. Breathing shortens. Vision narrows. Thoughts scatter. In those moments, instinct takes over. An instinct without preparation often chooses the wrong action or no action at all. Training gives the mind something to grab onto when chaos hits. It replaces random reaction with conditioned response. When fear surges, trained behavior steps in automatically. The body moves before doubt has time to interfere. Hands know where to go. Feet know how to position. The mind focuses on the next task instead of the worst outcome. Panic thrives on uncertainty. The more unfamiliar a situation feels, the stronger panic becomes. Training reduces uncertainty. It turns unknowns into recognizable patterns. Even when the details change, the structure feels familiar. That familiarity calms the nervous system enough to keep thinking functional. Under stress, the brain doesn't rise to the occasion. It falls to its level of preparation. Without training, people revert to habits shaped by comfort, not crisis. Those habits aren't designed for pressure. Training rewires habits so they work when pressure is extreme. Repetition is what makes training effective. Not once, not twice. Repetition under fatigue, distraction, and stress. That repetition builds pathways in the brain that don't require conscious effort. When panic tries to take control, those pathways activate faster than fear. Training also teaches restraint. Panic pushes people to rush, to overcommit, to waste energy. Training teaches pacing. It teaches when to move and when to hold. It prevents emotional decisions that create bigger problems than the original threat. In high-stress moments, perception distorts. Sounds feel louder. Movements feel faster. Time feels compressed or stretched. Panic amplifies these distortions. Training corrects them. It grounds perception in process. It keeps attention anchored to what matters instead of what feels overwhelming. Another strength of training is decision-making under pressure. Panic narrows choices to fight, flee, or freeze. Training expands the menu. It creates layers of response. Primary actions, secondary options, contingencies. The presence of options reduces panic because the mind isn't trapped between extremes. Training doesn't eliminate fear. It makes fear manageable. Fear becomes information instead of interference. Elevated heart rate becomes fuel. Adrenaline becomes clarity instead of chaos. The body still reacts, but the reaction is directed. People often believe they will think clearly in a crisis because they are calm in normal life. That belief is misleading. Calm in comfort does not translate to calm under threat. Training bridges that gap. It exposes the mind to controlled stress so real stress doesn't feel foreign. Training also builds confidence that is earned, not imagined. That confidence changes posture, tone, and movement. It reduces hesitation. It signals capability. Panic feeds on self-doubt. Confidence starves it. In moments of danger, seconds matter. Panic wastes seconds on shock and disbelief. Training shortens the gap between recognition and action. The mind identifies the problem and moves immediately into response. Training includes failure. Mistakes made during practice become lessons without consequences. That experience prevents collapse when mistakes happen in real situations. Panic magnifies errors. Training absorbs them. When people lack training, they often fixate on the threat itself. Training shifts focus to tasks. Hands do this. Feet go there. Breathe this way. Task focus keeps the mind occupied and prevents fear from spiraling. Training also strengthens teamwork. In group situations, panic spreads quickly. Training creates shared language and expectations. People know their roles. They move together instead of colliding. That coordination reduces confusion and fear. Even simple training makes a difference. Knowing how to breathe under stress. Knowing how to move in tight spaces. Knowing how to protect balance and posture. These basics can keep panic from taking control. Training creates memory under stress. Panic erases memory. Training preserves it. The mind recalls steps even when emotion is high. When the environment becomes hostile, training becomes a guide. It replaces hope with action. It replaces fear with function. Panic may still knock, but training answers the door first. Underestimating someone is the first mistake because assumptions shape behavior long before action begins. The moment a person is labeled as weak, harmless, or incapable, attention drops. Respect fades. Caution disappears. That shift doesn't happen consciously. It happens quietly, through body language, tone, and positioning. People underestimate based on appearance, size, gender, age, or demeanor. Calm is mistaken for compliance. Silence is mistaken for fear. Politeness is mistaken for submission. These surface judgments create blind spots. And blind spots invite consequences. When someone is underestimated, space is given carelessly. Personal boundaries are crossed without resistance being expected. Distance closes. Control is assumed. That assumption changes how aggressively someone acts. They take risks they wouldn't take otherwise. They move closer. They hesitate less. They expose themselves. Underestimation also affects preparation. When a threat believes they have the advantage, they skip steps. They don't plan for resistance. They don't consider counteraction. They rely on dominance instead of strategy. That reliance makes them predictable. The underestimated person gains something powerful. Time. Time to observe. Time to position. Time to decide. While the other side operates on confidence, the underestimated side operates on clarity. Confidence without caution is fragile. History is full of moments where underestimation reversed outcomes. Not because of brute force, but because arrogance creates openings. When someone believes victory is guaranteed, they stop adapting. They commit to a single path. If that path fails, they have nothing else. Underestimation also alters emotional balance. The person who feels superior becomes careless. The person being underestimated often becomes focused. That focus sharpens perception. Small details stand out. Movements are noticed. Intent is read. In confrontations, perception matters as much as reality. When someone expects no resistance, resistance hits harder. Surprise disrupts rhythm. It breaks momentum. The underestimated person controls that surprise. Underestimating someone is also a failure of empathy. It ignores the complexity of human experience. It dismisses the possibility of training, resilience, or resolve. People carry unseen histories. Skills don't advertise themselves. Experience doesn't always show. Those who are underestimated often learn to move quietly. They don't signal capability. They don't correct assumptions. They let others believe what they want. That restraint is strategic, not passive. The danger of underestimation increases in groups. When multiple people share the same assumption, it reinforces itself. No one challenges it. The belief becomes fact in their minds. Group confidence replaces individual judgment. Underestimation can also be weaponized. When someone expects compliance, defiance becomes disorienting. When someone expects fear, calm becomes unsettling. That psychological shift can change the entire dynamic. Many conflicts are decided before the first move. Underestimation tilts the board early. It hands initiative to the wrong side. Initiative determines tempo. Tempo determines outcome. The underestimated person often feels pressure, but pressure doesn't always break people. Sometimes it clarifies purpose. When options are limited, intention sharpens. Distractions fall away. Underestimation removes fear from the wrong person. Fear is a signal to be careful. When fear is absent, mistakes increase. Overconfidence invites exposure. Respect is not politeness. It is caution. It is awareness. When respect disappears, vulnerability appears. Underestimating someone strips away that protection. Even skilled individuals fall into this trap. Experience can create its own arrogance. Familiarity breeds shortcuts. Shortcuts breed error. Underestimating someone also blocks learning. When you believe someone has nothing to teach you, you stop paying attention. You miss cues. You miss warnings. You miss shifts in behavior. The first mistake often feels small. A step too close. A moment of distraction. A laugh instead of caution. But small mistakes stack. And once momentum shifts, recovery becomes difficult. Underestimation is not just misjudging strength. It is misjudging will. Willpower does not scale with appearance. Resolve does not follow stereotypes. The moment someone is underestimated, the situation becomes unstable. Control is assumed, but not secured. Advantage is imagined, but not guaranteed. An imagined advantage is the easiest kind to lose control the space. Control the outcome because space dictates options. Where you stand, where you move, and what you can reach all shape what happens next. Space is not neutral. It either works for you or against you. Those who understand this never treat their surroundings as background. Every environment has limits and advantages. Walls, doors, corners, furniture, lighting, and sound all influence behavior. Control begins with awareness. Noticing how close exits are. Noticing what blocks movement and what channels it. Space decides who has freedom and who feels trapped. People who lose control of space often lose initiative. They react instead of act. They get pushed into corners, tight areas, or positions where movement is restricted. Once mobility is limited, options shrink fast. Panic rises. Mistakes follow. Control doesn't always mean dominating the entire area. Sometimes it means denying space, preventing someone from getting closer, blocking angles, using obstacles to create distance. Even small adjustments in position can shift power. Distance is one of the most important elements of space. Too close, and reaction time disappears. Too far, and threats gain momentum. Managing distance keeps timing in your favor. Timing decides whether actions land or fail. Angles matter. Standing directly in front of someone invites pressure. Shifting slightly changes lines of attack and vision. Angles create uncertainty for the other person and clarity for you. Space is three-dimensional, even in tight rooms. Height also influences control. Higher ground offers visibility and leverage. Lower positions can offer stability and protection. Knowing when to rise or lower changes balance in your favor. Objects in a space are not obstacles by default. They are tools. Tables create barriers. Walls limit approach. Doorways funnel movement. Control comes from using what exists instead of wishing for open ground. Sound and lighting affect space too. Noise hides movement. Silence exposes it. Shadows conceal. Bright light reveals. Understanding these elements changes how you move and when you act. People often surrender space without realizing it. They back up instinctively. They let others close distance. They drift toward corners during stress. These habits give control away. Awareness interrupts those habits. Control of space also influences psychology. Someone who owns space appears confident. They move with purpose. They choose positions instead of reacting to them. That confidence pressures the other side to adjust. In group situations, space becomes even more critical. Poor positioning leads to being surrounded or isolated. Good positioning keeps threats in front and limits angles of approach. Space management reduces numbers. Control is not static. Space changes as people move. Furniture shifts. Doors open or close. Control requires constant adjustment. Those who stop adapting lose advantage. Tight spaces demand precision. Wide spaces demand awareness. Each environment requires different choices. Treating all spaces the same leads to errors. Control also involves knowing when to move and when to hold. Constant movement can waste energy and create exposure. Stillness at the right moment can stabilize a situation. Emotional control ties directly to spatial control. Fear makes people shrink. Confidence expands presence. The body reflects the mind. Space responds to posture and movement. Those who understand space think ahead. They don't just see where they are. They see where they will be in 5 seconds. They position for the next move before it's needed. Losing space often happens gradually. A step back here, a shift there. By the time it's noticed, options are limited. Control requires early decisions. Space also dictates escape routes. Knowing how to leave is part of controlling outcome. Positioning near exits without appearing trapped is a skill. Crowded spaces amplify mistakes. There is less room to recover. Precision matters more. Small errors have larger consequences. Control of space doesn't guarantee success, but lack of it guarantees struggle. Space shapes every interaction. Those who master it dictate pace, options, and pressure. When space is controlled, decisions become simpler. Actions align with position. The environment supports intent. Outcome follows positioning long before the situation resolves. When the door opens, only preparation walks out because outcomes don't respect intention. Wanting to survive, hoping to be brave, or believing things will work out means nothing once pressure is applied. The moment the door opens, there is no time to negotiate with fear or explain good intentions. What moves forward is whatever has already been built. Preparation is invisible until it's tested. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't look dramatic. It lives in habits, reflexes, and decisions made long before the moment arrives. When chaos hits, preparation steps in quietly and takes control. People often confuse confidence with preparation. Confidence is a feeling. Preparation is a structure. Confidence can vanish under stress. Preparation remains. It carries the mind when emotions spike and thinking narrows. When the door opens, the body acts faster than the mind can explain. There is no pause to plan from scratch. There is no chance to ask what the right move is. The body executes what it knows. If it knows nothing, it hesitates. Hesitation is costly. Preparation shapes perception. A prepared mind sees signals others miss. It recognizes patterns. It anticipates movement. The unprepared mind reacts late, surprised by events that were forming in plain sight. Fear tests preparation immediately. Heart rate climbs. Breathing changes. Vision narrows. Preparation manages these responses. It keeps breathing steady. It keeps movement efficient. It prevents fear from hijacking behavior. Preparation is built in layers. Physical readiness, mental resilience, situational awareness. Each layer supports the others. Remove one and the structure weakens. Together, they create stability under pressure. Many people wait for motivation to prepare. That approach fails because motivation is inconsistent. Preparation requires discipline, doing uncomfortable things without urgency, repeating skills when they feel boring, practicing scenarios you hope never happen. Preparation also includes humility, knowing what you don't know, recognizing gaps, seeking training instead of assuming capability. Overconfidence blocks preparation. It convinces people they'll figure it out later. When the door opens, later doesn't exist. Preparation is not about perfection. It's about reducing chaos. It doesn't eliminate risk. It increases control. It turns unpredictable moments into manageable ones. Prepared individuals make fewer dramatic movements. They don't rush blindly. They conserve energy. They choose actions with purpose. That efficiency compounds advantage. Preparation also affects recovery. When something goes wrong, prepared people adjust faster. They don't collapse emotionally. They reset and continue. Unprepared people often stop entirely. The environment doesn't care how fair the situation is. It doesn't pause for explanations. Preparation respects this reality. It accepts that conditions will be unfavorable and plans accordingly. Preparation is also psychological permission. It allows decisive action without guilt or hesitation. When a choice must be made, prepared individuals act without second-guessing because the decision has already been considered. Training scenarios are doors that open safely. Each one teaches something. Each one exposes weaknesses. Avoiding preparation avoids discomfort, but guarantees struggle later. Preparation also influences how others respond. Calm under pressure creates trust. Clear movement creates coordination. Panic spreads confusion. Preparation spreads stability. There is a difference between being ready and being lucky. Luck is temporary. Preparation is repeatable. Luck disappears the moment conditions change. When the door opens, excuses stay behind. Only capability moves forward. Capability is built, not imagined. Preparation doesn't care about titles, size, or assumptions. It doesn't discriminate. It rewards effort and consistency. The quiet work done beforehand decides everything that follows. The unseen hours shape visible outcomes. When the moment arrives, the door opens without warning. And what steps through is whatever you took the time to prepare.